All right, today, class, I want to talk about Plato. And before we go into Plato's ethics, which is something I want to address eventually, we first need to talk about Plato's metaphysics and his epistemology. As I said in a previous video, metaphysics deals with the nature of reality, why there is stuff, how did it get here, how does it function, what keeps it running. Is there another world beyond the physical world? These are the questions of metaphysics, and Plato addressed these questions in some detail, at least with his answers of what he thought was true and real about the nature of reality. To begin with, Plato ascribed to what you might call a two-world view, a two-world system, in which he believed that there are actually two separate worlds in which we live. The first world, obviously, is the physical world, which most of us consider to be the real world, the true world, because that's what we see with our physical eyes and we sense with our physical senses. For Plato, however, this world was considered the unreal world. This physical world, as you know, changes. Everything in it changes. Nothing in this physical world is permanent other than change. Mountains rise and fall, rivers flow and wash away the banks and change their course, floods come and go, hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, everything changes. Trees grow and then they die. Animals and people grow up and then we die. So nothing in the physical world remains the same, nothing at all. For this reason, Plato and others of the Greeks felt that the physical world was somehow not really the ultimate world, because from their perspective, something which is true and real and ultimate should have some kind of permanency, some kind of unchangingness. So their definition of something which would be true or real would be something which is eternally the same, consistently unchanging, really like a perfect sphere almost, something which is unblemished, untarnished, and remains always the same. There's one reason why Plato and Pythagoras and other ancient philosophers loved mathematics, because they could define things which for them were true and unchanging. And this seemed to be a really good starting point for philosophy. For Plato, anyway, the physical world, therefore, is a changing world. The real world, to Plato, was the world of the mind, or the spirit. He believed that there is a world, I guess the best analogy would be to say there's a spiritual realm in which everything that exists there is truly, ultimately real, perfect, and unchanging. And this not only means people or substantial things, but also concepts, forms, like mathematical numbers or forms, pyramids, spheres, circles, but even more complex thoughts like beauty and justice and truth and ultimately goodness. Plato believed that these forms, or these ideals that we have, actually have a permanent, eternal form. And these forms can only be conceived or perceived through profound meditation and contemplation. So when we really stop and remove ourselves from the daily cares of life, and we dwell profoundly upon the concept of truth or beauty or goodness or justice, we will begin to get a glimpse of what these things are and what they mean in daily life. So for Plato, once again, there are two worlds. This two-world theory, one world which is the ideal world, the true world of eternal, unchanging forms. That means that, for example, in this ideal world, there is a tree, an ideal tree, which contains within it, it's the form of a tree, and it contains within it everything which we associate with treeness, that which is connected to being a tree. So it would have leaves, or it might have pine needles. But whatever it had, it would have tree-y things on it, for gathering sunlight. It would have branches. It would, when you looked at it, you would say, that is a true and ultimate tree. Perhaps a table or a chair. If you saw a chair in this ideal topos noetos, as it's called, the world of, thought. This world of thought, or of mental perception, the topos noetos, is a world in which there would be a chair, which is the ultimate form of the chair, and it contains within it everything which is connected to chairness. It would be good for sitting. It would be comfortable. It would be beautiful. And you would look at that and say, that is a chair. So everything in that world exists in a permanent, unchanging, ideal form. Now, the physical world, according to Plato, is a kind of a bag of stuff. It's just a big container or sack of stuff, material. And this material is always changing. And the way that things exist in this world, whenever we have a chair or a table or a dog or a person or a tree, these things are actually the shadowy reflections of the ideal person or chair or tree from the topos noetos. So somehow that ideal form almost shines down here, but we don't see the direct image of it in this world. We see the shadowy form of that thing. And this actually brings us to Plato's epistemology as well, because his view of knowledge was, and his understanding of knowledge is that when we see a chair or a table or a tree or a dog or anything in the physical world, we don't learn about them so much. We don't learn that a dog is a dog. We remember that a dog is a dog, that a tree is a tree. And the reason we remember is the fact that, according to Plato, we pre-exist our birth. Our spirit existed prior to our birth in the topos noetos, and in that world we saw everything that existed, and we understood everything that existed. So when we come and are born in this world, we start off being ignorant because we have forgotten what it was we knew. But as we go through life and we meet dogs and chairs and trees and horses and whatever else we meet, we recognize them and say, I recognize that as a dog because it contains dogness. It contains all the things that make a dog a dog. So his idea of knowledge was that we don't really learn in this world. We actually remember stuff from our previous existence. Socrates actually makes a point of this at one point in talking to a slave boy, when he teaches the young lad how to determine the Pythagorean theorem from looking at a triangle. And he uses this as evidence that a young boy who knows nothing about math can, within a few minutes, completely comprehend the meaning of the Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And Socrates uses this as an example of the fact that when we learn things, quote unquote, in the physical world, we're not really learning, we're actually remembering from our previous existence. Now, what this means for Plato in terms of his metaphysics is that this topos noetos, the world of forms, the world of mental forms and concepts, is the true world which we will exist in after our death again, and that is the world of reality. And this world is a world of changingness, and for that reason the things in this world are not real, they're not true, because they change. People get old, they get wrinkled, and they get decrepit, and then they die. So Plato felt that can't be a real thing because it dies. Real things should exist beyond death.